everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Got a couple Tavors on the table. One of them is a 762 NATO, the Tavor 7, and this one is recently acquired. They just hit the market, and I was able to score this one. I think they've only been out a couple, 3 weeks at this point, and they're still kind of scarce. And then this one over here is Hammer's SAR, which is 556223. And he's had this for a long time, and I've got one like it. Mine happens to be black, his is the flat dark earth. And both of us have kind of configured ours differently. I put a night vision scope on mine, and he's got the Meprolite and the Meprolite flip out magnifier. So just a different setup. But I wanted to show you the differences between the two weapons because they've improved things quite a bit. The one that would kind of sit in the middle between these from a design perspective would be the X95. That was an evolution of the SAR. And happily, which it's a nice gun, but they took some things about it that I'm not as fond of. When they did the Tavor 7, it's more closely related to the SAR than it is to the X95. So a few things that are different. One of them is you'll notice some difference at the front end. This one has M-lock slots, and it doesn't have a side rail. This one has a Picatinny rail on it. Right here, kind of at a 45 degrees, you might think, well, that's great, you got one on each side. Well, you don't, because on the other side you have the charging handle. And basically the way this works is you can reverse the charging handle. You kind of take the gun apart, and you would take that Picatinny rail and flip it over to this side, flip the charging handle over. You'll see there's a sling swivel port for a quick disconnect here. And there isn't one on this side, but there actually is. If you were to reverse the charging handle, this would end up on the other side, and you'd have a sling swivel port, and that's a tough one to say. And then at the back, there's one on each side at the back. Well, on the Tavor 7, you have the two at the back. They're there. And you also have one on each side at the front, just above the chamber. And they're there regardless of where you set the charging handle. And you'll also notice that there's a charging handle slot open on both sides. You can actually flip the charging handle around without having to disassemble the weapon or change any tools. You can put the charging handle on either side. So if you want to do this AK style, still be right-handed, you flip it over. So that is a bit more flexible. And there's a notch, by the way, where you can lock it back. And since I've got it locked back, show you that this one's unloaded. We cleared both of these before we even started the video. This is a significant improvement over the regular SAR, because with the regular SAR you had to, or the regular Tavor, you had to pull this back and you had to pull down on the bolt hold back to lock it open. There's no notch. Now both of them use that same bolt latch assembly right here. And I, by the way, I think it's an awesome design. You lock back after the last round, you swap your magazine, slap the magazine in, hit this with the heel of your palm, and it goes back into battery. I love that design. The problem is when you're wanting to lock it back and keep it that way, it's easy to hit this accidentally while you're handling it and have it slam back closed. So that's a major improvement on the Tavor 7, is that you have both. You still have this excellent mechanism for locking the bolt and releasing the bolt, but you also have the way to hold it open. And while I've got it locked back, this one of course is unloaded as well. Now while I'm looking at it, you see that this has a shell deflector, and it doesn't have one on this side. Well, it can. You unscrew things, you move parts around, you flip pieces around, and you can reverse the ejection on this to the other hand. But I'm going to go ahead and close the bolt nicely rather than let it slam closed when I inevitably bump that. You have to buy a bolt. You have to buy a left-handed bolt to swap it over. And it does require you to partially disassemble the weapon. It needs other tools that you don't have with it. But it can be done. With the Tavor 7, it's done with everything that comes with the gun. The bolt inside, if you want to see the details of the bolt between this one, we've got a video on the 5.56 where we do a full disassembly, and we've got a video on this where you also do a full disassembly. You can see the details of the bolt. But the bottom line is, you just move these parts, move this back, move the other one forward, and boom, you've done your port already. The bolt, you just, during a field strip, turn the bolt upside down, change a pin, and bang, you've got a left-handed eject, so you can flip back and forth. So this gun can be converted to left-hand or right-hand in the field using only parts that are actually on the gun. Nothing that came in the box that you got to carry with you, or nothing you got to buy extra. It's ready to go. And by the way, don't let the screw fool you. You don't need a flathead screwdriver to do it. This kind of pulls up. You see it kind of pulls up. You pull it up and rotate it around and pull it back, and it becomes a shell deflector on this side. When it's turned around this way, it becomes a latch to hold the whole thing closed. So it's actually a really intuitive design. One of the things you'll also see that's different is the grips. And on the surface, they look similar. Now this podium this is Fab Defense podium that Hammer put on this gun. It clips on under the grip, so there's a little bottom plate that you took off. This one, unfortunately, is designed just a hair different that you can't do that. And I would love to have one of these on this gun. This is just a perfect design. It's out of the way, but you push a button and these two legs come down and you've got a nice bipod built in that's low profile. This grip is changeable with other similar grip styles, but of course on the original one this is all molded into it. So this whole thing cannot be changed on the SAR. This piece in the middle can be changed. Doesn't come with any replacements, but the aftermarket will take off guaranteed and give you some flexibility on it. But that slight design change makes it where this Fab Defense podium will not work on this gun, and I really wish it did. Other than that, on the original SAR, you could take this off, and there's a place to you can remove this completely, but you also can buy a rail and put a rail on here. So I've taken this off on mine, and I had a flashlight, Midwest Industries flashlight holder in there. But if you do take this off, you really don't have a place to grip the bottom of it. You don't have a place to hold it from underneath. But you can buy a section of rail. There's two screws, and it screws in, and now you've got a rail on it. But once you put a rail on it, now you got a rail on it. So if you actually try to use it without an accessory on there, you've got a nice sharp Picatinny rail to bite into you. So now you're putting covers on it. This has a similar looking handguard, and I don't see a rail, and I don't see a place to put a rail. Well, it's because it isn't. The rail's underneath there. You push this little trap door, and you see the rails under there. So I can slide this off and use this rail, or I can slide it back on and lock it in place and not have to worry about my hands getting chewed up. At the front, you see a little extra something sticking out. That little extra something on the Tavor 7 is an adjustable gas regulator, and it has 4 settings. It has regular, normal operation, adverse, so if it's gotten dirty or you're having problems with it short shucking or weak ammo. Suppress, so if you're going to run a can on it, you don't get as much backflow in your face and it doesn't slam the bolt as aggressively. And the one that you probably can't see at the moment right there, get it around, is off. Oh, turns the gas system off, turns it into a single shot rifle. Mostly useful if you're trying to get, if you're using a suppressor and you want to get that absolute positively as quiet as you can get, that will be useful. Both of them have a Picatinny rail on the top. You can see the Picatinny rail on the SAR. You can see the Picatinny rail on the Tavor 7. Both of them have index marks so that you can keep track of where something was. If you've got a QD mount, you take something off, put it back on. And of course you'll see that this Picatinny rail's got all sorts of accessories already on it. This one's going to have a scope of some sort, just haven't finalized the decision of exactly what scope. The nice thing is, if you've got a 5.56 Tavor and you know how to operate it, you're going to pretty much be able to operate this one seamlessly. The few things that they've enhanced don't change really how you operate it, with one exception: the magazine release. And I'm not necessarily going to consider this an improvement, it's just different. Americans hate anything from a mag release perspective that's not a button near the trigger guard somewhere. This one has a lever here that's the mag release, and the concept behind it is you fired your last round, you've got a replacement magazine, all you got to do is bring your hand back and kind of puff up your palm a little bit, and it drops your mag for you. You put the new mag in, and as you put the new mag in, if you kind of do it like this, so if you grab a mag kind of like this with your thumb up, as the mag goes in, it'll hit that bolt release. The mag will go home, the bolt release will close, all kind of one seamless, smooth motion, and you're back in business. Well, you can still do the bolt closey thing with the Tavor 7 because it uses this same design, you'll see. But you're going to drop the mag with a button. Now, one thing that is, originally I might have worried about is that this wouldn't work well, because there's going to be a linkage. There's a linkage from this button going all the way back here to the release, which is back here, because that's where you're going to grab the magazine. Don't worry, they did it right. That linkage is not sloppy. The magazine release on the Tavor 7 is very, you can see it operating there. It's very responsive, and it feels nice and solid, and it's smooth. It's hard enough that you're not going to do it by accident, but it's not so hard you can't do it with your pointer finger or your trigger finger very easily. So, of course, when they do something, they're going to do it right. One of the things that they did do is improve the overall trigger pull. The trigger is nicer on the Tavor 7 right from the factory than the trigger is on even this generation SAR. I got the first one that when they first came out, one of the first ones. The trigger was hideous. Ended up putting a Timney trigger in it. By the time Hammer got this one, they had actually improved the factory trigger, and he's currently disinclined to change it at the moment. The trigger on this, I'm probably not inclined to change either. I'll find out when I actually start doing some, try to do some fine zero and trying to fire 100, 300 yards, trying to put it exactly where I want it. Can I? The only other thing that you'll notice that's different, and I don't know if I can get them to flip up, the Tavor, the original Tavor, there's one, you can see it there, had a flip-up sight right there. So these were tritium night sights. There's one at the front, one at the back. So these flip-up sights could actually be used as your primary sights if you wanted to run irons, or they could be used as a backup, whichever way you want to go. They omitted that feature entirely from the Tavor 7. It's just a smooth rail. I just grabbed a scope that I had sitting in the safe and put it on there so that I could actually do an initial zero and go from there. But you're going to want an optic with this. And of course, I'm going to pretty much assume that most Tavors end up with some sort of an optic on them anyway. They're going to end up with a scope, they're going to end up with a red dot, maybe they'll end up with something at 45 degrees. The way I've got mine set up, I've got the night vision scope on the top, and I got a red dot sitting on this rail at 45 degrees. So you're going to end up with a variation of themes on them, but they don't come out of the box ready to fire. By the way, these both have aluminum top rails, so the top rail is aluminum, which is the one you're really going to put the big business on, a big scope or whatever. And any other rail you find on them somewhere, like this one, the side rails are polymer. The little rail piece you could get to put underneath here was polymer, but the main business end of it was on both of them is aluminum. On this one, it's kind of a two-piece setup, and on this one, it's all one piece, a monolithic rail. Overall, they didn't change a huge amount. They changed nuances. They changed a few things that were important, mainly because of the caliber. And the difference in length on these, when you first saw the thing start out, it looked like this one's a whole lot shorter. Well, that's forced perspective. The camera's over here, so anything closer to the camera is going to look bigger. Look how big my hand gets when I come up. But in all reality, I'll set them on top of each other as best as I can. They are within ½ inch of each other. And even there, you get a little bit of forced perspective, and it's kind of hard to see, but they're within ½ inch of each other. Overall, there's not a big difference. The chamber is obviously longer on a 308, so that's going to extend it a little bit, but the original Tavor 556 version, the SAR, has this big thick rubber butt pad, and that adds a little length to the back. So you can see it right here. And that's actually quite comfortable of a butt pad. When we first saw this, we thought, oh great, you just got this hard rubber teeth on it, and this is a 308, man, this thing's going to hurt. It doesn't. The way this thing is designed, the way that muzzle brake works, the way the recoil and the gas system work on it, and it is plastic, it's not metal. That would make it even worse, but all in all, you can dump rounds downrange with this thing all day, and you are not going to hurt. In fact, the thing barely flips. They've really designed it well. It pretty much stays right on track. So fast follow-up shots are really easy to do with this, depending on how much you've zoomed your optic. If you've got a zoomed optic, it'll take you a little bit longer to get back on target because they tend to. If you're using a red dot on this, you're going to be back on target right away. So don't let that deter you. Don't think that, you know, okay, this thing's going to beat you up, because it really won't. And that was the one thing when I saw this, that there's no butt pad option, you know, nothing that I could aware of that would fit it, that it was going to be brutal, and not at all. It's a pretty loud thump for anybody standing near it, which is typical of 308. It's the loudest it seems to be behind the shooter. But when you're firing this, it's comfortable, it's ergonomic. You've got, you know, a full hand grip on it, you know, there on the trigger. Overall, it just is easy to live with this thing. So if you're looking for one, now the SARs have come down in price. I think you can now routinely find them in the $1,600 territory. You may be able to find them less. They have a similar MSRP. This one MSRP at $20.99, and right now $19.30 is about the lowest reliable price I found. And when I say reliable price, I'm seeing them for $1,500, $1,600 out of stock. Notify me when available. If you haven't got them to sell, then you can put any price you want to, because then when they do come in stock, you can bump the price up to, you know, whatever ridiculous price. So I see that as bait and switch. But places that actually have it to ship today, 1932, 1950 is about what they're going for as of the making of this video. So beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Gunstreamer, Twitter. We're all over the place now. And have a great day. Thank you.